Before Trump started his immigration crackdown, around 6 months ago, I created a video where I went through all of the money that's been given to ICE for immigration enforcement going back to Obama. And I speculated that Trump is not actually going to be able to deport as many people as he claimed. And in that video, I speculated and I estimated that probably the most people that Trump's actually going to be able to deport, given the hard limits on detention space and funding, is going to be around 400,000 a year. And in that video, I drew comparisons to the Obama administration, who received more funding for ICE enforcement than any other president had previously received. And let me start by saying I was so wrong in that video, and I had no idea what was coming. So in this video, I'd like to amend some of those very wrong predictions that I previously made and talk about what the implications are for immigrant populations in the US over the next 4 years. Let me start by repeating that when Trump was running, one of his main policy issues was, I'm going to deport all of these criminals, all of these murderers, all of these rapists. I'm going to get them all out. They're going to stop eating our dogs and cats. We're just going to get them all the hell out of here. That's basically, the Trump rallying cry at all of his rallies. And it energized this really significant base of his, which began expanding outwards. And even moderates and some Democrats were saying hey, this immigration thing is a big problem. We have all these criminals here. And if you repeat the same thing over and over again, people begin to believe it's true. But it turns out there aren't that many criminals here. And, if you look at the actual deportation numbers, ICE will post every 2 weeks the actual encounters and immigration arrests that it made. And it'll classify the immigrants based on risk profile. And you'll either be really risky if you've committed crimes or not risky at all. I don't know the exact language for it, but you can find all the actual risk profile classifications on the ICE website. And in the end of January or February, when Trump first started enacting his new policies, the number of criminal arrests were much higher than they are now. It seems like by July 2025, every criminal that ICE was able to arrest has pretty much been arrested. And now they're just focusing on, your landscaper and that mom and 2 kids who are applying for asylum. And you even see in news articles now that ICE officers are saying, this is not what I signed up for. I signed up to make America safer. I signed up to do 4 a.m. morning raids to go after criminals and terrorists and national security risks and human traffickers. I didn't sign up to do 4 a.m. raids to go after this poor lady and her 2 kids who are seeking asylum and who've never committed a crime in any country in the entire world. So there have been a major shift, and interestingly, there was recently a poll put out that says there's been a shift in the electorate as well. And the majority of Americans now think that these immigration policies are going too far. We'll see what happens in the future, but I have a feeling things are going to get much worse before they get better as a result of all of this funding that all of the immigration agencies have recently received. So under Obama, the most funding that ICE ever had in a single year was $6.2 billion. Over the next 4 years, from 2025 to 2029, ICE has received $100 billion of funding under the most recent funding bill. And that means they're going to have access to $25 billion a year. That's a 400% increase over the Obama enforcement budget, which resulted in around 450-ish thousand people getting deported in its heyday, at its peak. If we take these numbers at face value and we assume that you can just scale up based on the number of dollars linearly, which is a major assumption, but let's assume that ICE is as efficient as deporting 400% of people as they are as deporting 100% of people, it's not unreasonable to see ICE deporting around 1.2 or more million people a year under these policies. Now, whether or not I actually think that's going to happen is questionable. There's still the question of detention beds. I mean, there are bottlenecks in the system. You can't just double the budget and instantly double the number of people deported. It's not that simple. There are operational inefficiencies that happen when you take things to scale. Any business owner can tell you, like it took me 5 employees to make $1 million a year. That doesn't mean having 10 employees is gonna get me to $2 million a year. It might be 12 or 13 employees to get to that second $1 million a year. And those same inefficiencies translate into government operations. In the video I made around 6 months ago, I speculated that detention capacity is going to be one of the major bottlenecks. And I still believe that to be true, but in a totally different way. So under Obama's funding, there were around 34,000 detention beds available each year. And there's currently a push to get up to 100,000 detention beds. This is going to be a combination of private prison facilities, so people who own stocks in, Core Civic or Geo, like these are the people who are about to make a ton of money off government contracts, but also federal facilities and state facilities are going to be commandeered for immigration detention beds. Whether or not Trump can actually deport 1.2 million people a year, which I don't actually think is going to happen, but whether or not that can happen, I think it's going to be largely a function of how quickly they can get up to 100,000 detention beds operational. The current plan is to get a bunch of that capacity available within the next year, and then over the next few years, they'll increase the capacity until they get to 100,000 beds. We'll see. I mean, we all know the government is not the most efficient at building new things, especially when it comes to infrastructure or buildings. They're pretty inefficient. They're pretty wasteful with money. We'll see how things play out. But I'm skeptical that a 400% increase in ICE funding is going to result in a 400% increase in actual removals from the United States. I don't like to quote people on the far right or the far left, but I will say that a statement made by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently was pretty on point. She said something to the effect of, if you think what ICE has been doing now is bad, this is child's play compared to the insane amount of funding they just received. ICE and immigration agencies under this new funding bill are now the largest federal agencies in the United States. Every other agency combined, whether it's the FBI, CIA, ATF, Federal Marshals Service, all of those federal law enforcement officers combined do not even come close to the amount of funding that ICE currently has, which tells you something about our government's priorities. And just as a side note, all of that language about we need to increase government efficiency and stop wasteful spending, all of that was clearly pure lies, since we've increased our budget surplus and deficits dramatically under this funding bill. And it was really more, we want to stop spending money on things we don't care about, and we want to spend more money than we've ever spent before on things that we care about that are likely to get us reelected. The question I'm going to leave you with, especially if you voted for Trump, is this: do you actually think that removing everyone who's in the US without status, whether they entered legally with a visa and overstayed or entered illegally to flee persecution, do you think that your quality of life will improve when all of these people are gone? When you no longer have agricultural workers, when you no longer have construction workers, when the costs of a salad in a restaurant go up astronomically, when the cost of building a house double, do you actually think you're going to be better off? And the second part to this question is, if you actually knew when you voted for Trump that he was going to be trying to deport everyone and not just criminals, and now they're calling everyone who's here without authorization criminals, the definition of criminal has evolved, would you still have supported these policies? If you would or wouldn't, I would love to know why in the comments section, and let me know which part of these policies you agree with or disagree with, or how the policies could have been improved. If you're new to my channel, my name is Puyan Darian. I'm an immigration attorney licensed and practicing in New York, focused on family-based immigration, naturalization, and deportation defense. I practice immigration nationwide, so if you live anywhere in the United States and you need immigration assistance, be sure to go to the video description below and schedule a consultation. It'll be directly with me, and I'll see how I can best assist you. If you're interested in learning more about immigration-related topics, especially changes under the Trump administration, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.